Jake, are the Utah Jazz the best team left in the NBA playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to say they are right now. I look at Brooklyn and I think that I think a lot of people want them to prove that they can beat Milwaukee. I think if they handle Milwaukee in 5 or 6 games, I don't think they'll handle them in 5, but if they were to beat them in 6 games, I think people will kind of change the narrative on the Nets. So right now, yeah, I think that the Jazz are the best team left in the postseason. I look at the Lakers and I say it's just not your year, man. You gotta get some rest. I mean, the Lakers, win the championship in the bubble last year. You essentially have, what was it, 3 weeks off or a month off or whatever it was, so you restarted the season. That's nothing. I mean, these guys need like extended time off. So I look at the Lakers; they're very injury riddled right now. I look at the Clippers. And I say, hey, this team just doesn't have the it factor, and we'll get into them in a minute. But then, looking around the league, I don't really fear Milwaukee if I'm the Jazz, because I think the Jazz will just outshoot them. I think it's really that simple. Milwaukee is yet to face a team that can really knock it down the way the Jazz can knock it down. So at the end of the day, yeah, right now, I think the Utah Jazz are the best team in the league. Do I think Mike Conley's injury is going to be some major deal? No, I don't. I think the guy's leg is always sore, and I think there are just times where he knows when he needs to stop, and so he stopped. And I can respect that. If you don't have a choice, for some guys, they don't have a choice but to manage injuries, and that's what he's doing with this.
Yep. Good morning, Austin Lewis. He says, saw a cool stat. Since Game 2, the Jazz have only been losing to Memphis for a total of 2 basketball minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, this was a great series, but it was Memphis.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jazz, and I know a lot of people were shocked when I said it, the Jazz are twice as good as Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
But that stat should be a confirmation. You know what I mean? Cool stat. You're absolutely right. The Jazz did not struggle much in this series. When the series didn't start until Donovan Mitchell came back in Game 2. And now it feels like Don versus the medical staff is, years ago.
And well, that's what we said, though, right? Like, if they come out and they dominate the series, everyone's going to forget about that whole situation. And what do you know? Everyone seems to have forgotten about it. So.
Yep. Austin Parkins says, which fell more flat last night? Memphis's defense, Dallas's shooting, or LA's playmaking? Or the cardboard cutouts in the LA crowd, since there's no such thing as a Clipper fan. By the way, wow, that's tough. By the way, do you guys know what's going on in LA County with the Clippers and the Lakers? The Clippers and the Lakers are battling LA County because LA County will not expand the crowd size at Staples Center because of COVID. Now, we all know that California has much tougher restrictions than most people. Their numbers are fantastic because of it. But I thought it was interesting that, Mrs. Monty and I were watching that game, and there are a lot of cardboard cutouts in the seats there. There's not a lot of human beings in that building.
Yeah.
And I think that's playing into it. Not that Staples Center is ever some unbelievable home court advantage, because it's not.
Yeah.
But I think it's very interesting. That's not a terrible point, Austin Parkins. Eugene says, good morning, lads.
Good morning.
Let's go Jazz. Brandon Whitesides, good morning to you. Forrest and Thomas are going to push us over the top. Murder is the case. Okay. Okay. It's a little early to be drinking, Brandon. Code N9N3. Okay. Welcome to the show.
Sure.
Jazz want the Mavs the same way we wanted the Grizzlies. Regular season, we handled the biz. Yeah. I think if you're the Utah Jazz and you get the Dallas Mavericks, you're going to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
I mean, with all due respect to what Luka Doncic is doing now, with all due respect to his smoking hot mom, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Kristaps Porzingis is a dud. They won last night, not because Luka got his, but because Tim Hardaway Jr. had, I think, 21 or 20 points.
Well, and I think you said that yesterday on the show, that he was the guy that kind of catapults them.
Yeah, the Mavericks go right now as Tim Hardaway Jr. goes, because Luka's always going to get his.
Yeah.
And when he doesn't, you're going to lose, bottom line. But 9 nights out of 10, Luka's getting his. You cannot count on Kristaps Porzingis at all. He wasn't even in double figures last night. It's Tim Hardaway Jr. and Luka Doncic, both in double figures, only in double figures, and they win. To me, by the way, the Clipper meltdown last night was unbelievable. If you look at the final sequence in that game, I don't know what Nunn was doing. I mean, he has an open layup, and he passed it trailing by 1. Do the math. You get that layup, you're up by 2. Do the math. You pass that ball. Now what?
You're so fucked.
Right? Like, I mean, you seriously are. Wow, that's a great drop. You seriously are. And I don't know how the Clippers are here. We sat here yesterday, and I felt as confident as any time I've ever been that the Clippers were going to win that game. And then they melt down, and in fact, Jake, they don't win that game, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah, like Clippers ain't living up to it, bro.
Close.
Clippers ain't living up to it, and this is why I said yesterday on the show, they don't have the it factor in this team, and it's not something that you can say, hey, on that piece of paper, like what's missing on the roster, like you can't.
Yes.
It's not something you're gonna find in the box score. It's not something. It's not a tangible thing that you can hold on to and say, yeah, the this or that. It's not like that with this team.
No, not at all.
It's the reason why they brought in Rondo. They thought that bringing in Rondo would sort of kind of bring all these different personalities together, and that may have happened on some level, but Rondo has not been what the team needs. And I don't know, it just seems like, and I don't know, again, we can speculate about this, but again, a Paul George team has culture issues. At least with Kawhi when he was in Toronto or even his early days as a Spur before the hamstring sitting out load management crap happened, those teams were good. You know what I mean? Those teams were you didn't have to
elite.
worry.
They weren't good, they were elite.
Yeah, so that's why I say my gut feeling, my instincts tell me that this is a Paul George issue, not a Kawhi issue. But at the same time, again, this is a Ty Lue-led team, and everybody thought, oh, well, he won championships. Well, did he win championships or did LeBron win championships?
I don't think his coaching's a problem.
Well,
I really don't. I think that you have a situation where you're relying on guys to perform at a very high level, and they're not doing it. I mean, I love man. Mm-hmm. Okay, that comes out wrong. But, you want
to explain that?
I like Terrence Mann.
A lot.
Plays 15 minutes. How is he the guy with the ball in his hands when the game's on the line? That's what I don't understand. And the argument with Rondo and Kawhi, and the reason that this team is sputtered down the stretch is because the rotations are weird. You can't have guys like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard pass the ball with the game on the line. It cannot happen.
But then you get that horrible shot out of the corner too, and that's the thing. Kawhi is forced to take this contested three out of the corner and he airballs it. I mean, how does that? I don't know. That's why I have the complaint about Ty Lue, because I wonder, okay, that was the best you could do. I mean, what is the point of having all this talent if you're going to take a contested three out of the corner and airball it? I mean, come on, dude. You have to have a better set than that in that moment to get PG or Kawhi a decent look. I would say, and I think everybody would agree, that that's about the lowest percentage look you could get outside of a half-court shot.
Yeah, I agree. Mikey says, are you guys ever right about anything? I'm serious. When's the last time you guys got something right? The Clippers are terrible. Yesterday, you spouted off about their greatness. Okay, well, I'm not the guy that sits here and tells you how right I am, but no, I'm kidding.
Do it.
It's not a matter of right or wrong when it comes. The Clippers are incredibly difficult to diagnose, Mikey. It's not. It's night to night. It's shocking that the home team hasn't won a game in the Clippers Mavericks series. So, okay, I'm wrong about that. But we haven't been wrong on pretty much anything else. We told you Philly was going to eliminate Washington last night. Atlanta beat our playoff predictions have been perfect.
Told you the Suns were going to handle the Lakers, and they're
told
doing
you that Donovan was going to come back for game 2, and they weren't going to lose another game in that series.
I'm Shiva, the god of death.
I mean, that's just who I am. It's what I do. I kill NBA dreams. You know what I'm saying? Austin Parkin says, I'm not worried about Conley. Oh, man, you guys in these comments are amazing. Let me find that again. He says, I'm not worried about Conley. I feel like the hamstring isn't as bad as people feared, and Coach Snyder pulled him because they clearly didn't need him.
They're managing him for sure. No doubt.
I don't think it's a question that they're managing him. If the hamstring isn't a problem, he wouldn't be getting an MRI. and he wouldn't say he's frustrated with the injury. Mike Conley left the game because he couldn't play. They were concerned about the injury. Were they ultra careful? Sure they were. But I wouldn't say you're not worried about it at all. He also says, after watching third and fourth quarter of the Dallas Clipper game, I'm not afraid of the Mavs. Luka's the only guy who can shoot. Well, then I would tell you to go back and watch Tim Hardaway Jr. Because Tim Hardaway Jr. is lights out. And that's a guy that when he is on, he's lethal.
But I think for the Jazz, and I agree with you, but I think for the Jazz, they are better than the Mavericks. And I think that the Jazz...
no question.
The Jazz...
Well, the Jazz are also better than the Clippers, but would they win that series? I don't know.
I don't know. It would depend on what the Clippers bring. But again, I can't confidently say, obviously, that the Clippers are going to survive that series. I mean, again, I
don't think you can say that at all now.
You know, this guy, you know, trying to criticize us in the comments. I mean, we've been talking about the Clippers having issues and being an inconsistent team for how long now? You know,
Months.
Yeah, yesterday we talked about the fact that it was really surprising that they had come back, and maybe we were wrong about them, and maybe and how I specifically said, and go back and find it, I specifically said that I was really surprised that they were able to do what they did and win 2 in a row and like bounce back, and like I honestly thought that they were done. And so that's what I'm saying. I'm a little surprised to see that comment, just because we've been talking. I mean, even since I can remember, even on trade deadline in the NBA, we were talking about the fact that the Clippers needed something, you know? So
look, the best team doesn't always win. I mean, there's no question. This Clipper team is living to hit the switch, and they didn't have it last night, and it was really surprising that Dallas completely changed their starting lineup and moved Porzingis to the 4, and Boban started at the 5, and they were actually really good right out of the gate with that lineup. And it's a little surprising. I don't know what you make of the Clippers. Chemistry, I guess, is everything. I don't know. James Knight says, how about those Clips, a real danger to the Jazz? Listen, again, in the NBA playoffs, it is simply survive and advance.
I think as Jazz fans, you guys need to be careful mocking other teams, because that's what that is. Hey, the Clippers are well below us. They have no chance. I mean, that's the sentiment in that comment. And I love you, James. Honestly, I do, man. I appreciate you being here every day. But all I'm saying is that the NBA playoffs are about matchups. You know, how does this or that series play out? Who wins this matchup or that matchup? And I'm not saying the Jazz are going to lose to the Clippers. I'm not. But what I am telling you is the Clippers are no cakewalk. They're not. You're not beating the Clippers in 5, in my opinion, but I could be wrong.
Mike Phillips makes an excellent point. Porzingis was one of the cardboard cutouts.
Yeah.
Where is he gone? I mean, he has not been the same guy since the knee injury. Like, he's never been the Knicks' Kristaps Porzingis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really disappointing, because he was on his way to being a dominant player in this league.
Yeah.
And he will occasionally hit threes for you, but you can't have a night, and I don't care who you are, you play 30 minutes and you only take 6 shots and score 8 points?
How many rebounds?
That's ridiculous. 6. And that's it. That's all he did, right? Yet Luka's got 42 on 37 shots, with ain't great. You get Tim Hardaway Jr. with 20 on 19 shots, 5 of 5 from the line. Like, I mean, do you realize the Dallas Mavericks won this game with 42 from Luka and 20 from Timmy J? That's it. Like, nobody, 8 from Finney-Smith. 9 from Boban, 8 from Porzingis, 4 from Kleba. Powell gave you 8. That's it.
Yeah.
Brunson gave you 2. Like you had 2 guys beat the LA Clippers. How is that possible?
It's Luka's world, bro.
I'm stunned by it.
I think playing Luka, one of the things that you really have to do is beat him up when he tries to go into the paint, because we have ESPN on in the background here. And he's just running around the paint, kind of doing whatever he wants, getting his open looks. Like, there's no toughness here. There's nothing, from the Clippers. And I think that maybe that's what it is. I mean, even the defense that they're playing is good by NBA standards, but at some point you gotta send a message like, hey, we're not letting you beat us. I mean, it's what teams do to Devin Booker. You know, we're going to double Devin and make someone else beat us. I don't know why we're not seeing that out of the Clippers right now.
Yeah, Carter says 15-6 without Conley equals 7-14 percentage. Jazz overall standing record 52-20, 7-22 percentage. But what does all of that mean right now? Absolutely nothing. It's the NBA playoffs. Look how different things have been in the NBA playoffs for almost every team. Look how different it's been. It's you don't play regular season basketball in the postseason. The Utah Jazz thrive when Mike Conley. Look how much of a role he played in dismantling the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
Like his three ball in this series.
The three coming off the pick is lethal.
Was absolutely game changing. All the fouls that he was able to get on Dylan Brooks, and I mean defending Ja Morant, which you're not really going to defend him. If you're thinking that Mike Conley's loss is not a big deal, I think I'd be really, really careful about that. I just would. Austin Parkin says, dude, Tim Hardaway was like 6 of 18 last night. He was vying with Clarkson for who can toss up more bricks. Okay.
Whatever.
The guy doesn't shoot well, and he still scores 20 points because he's 5 of 5 from the free throw line. Tim Hardaway, I think I said this yesterday, he's a hot and cold shooter.
He is.
When
Just
he's
like
hot,
Jordan Clarkson.
When he's hot, they win, just like Jordan Clarkson. When he's hot, the Dallas Mavericks are a different team. And Viskovich, says, from Croatia, by the way, Lillard is also fantastic. And Denver doing this without Murray, Barton, and Dozier. Barton and Dozier, nobody's talking about them. Now, supposedly, they're going to get Barton back tonight. And if that happens, hey, I think
you got a series.
I think Denver is a much more dangerous team. But man, that was an unbelievable performance out of double nickel Dame the other night.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that? Do you have a feeling one way or the other on that?
I think it's the best series in the postseason right now. I think. Do I have a feeling about who's going to win that series?
I think you got to lean Denver, don't you? It's
It's
so demoralizing to lose like that.
I think that Portland was one step out of bounds away from winning that game, and I think that that's a mistake out of a veteran in C.J. McCollum stepping out like that, and that just tells me that Portland is more than capable of winning 2 in a row. That said, are the percentages with them? No, of course not. I mean, you're talking about going on the road and then coming back home. Like it's a lot to ask. But what I will say is we all know Damian Lillard is clutch as hell. That's not even in question. And we all know that when that's the case with a team, you want to talk about a team that's got chemistry. Portland's got chemistry. They're capable of doing this. I just don't know that it'll happen. I would like to see them win, but it's doubtful, I guess.
By the way, Mike Singer of the Denver Post is saying that Will Barton will not play tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough...
I'm tired. You know what I'm tired of? I'm tired of us having to have conversations about guys being hurt. And this is something that I think, isn't a conversation in normal times because, they would have had a regular offseason. And this is why... when people are like, oh, well, these guys are professional athletes and the offseason doesn't matter. Okay, well, actually, it does matter.
Shut up and dribble.
Yeah, it does matter. Big time. You're not the one who's walking around on one leg.
Yeah. Man, I don't care who's injured and who's not. This is going to be one of the most difficult NBA championships to win.
Yeah.
It is. You thought last year in the bubble was difficult being sequestered from everybody and everything in the outside world for 95 straight days. I think this one's going to even be more difficult just because of the attrition it takes on your body. Like,
for real.
You're seeing stars, Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, LeBron James, AD. You're seeing building block, incredibly important players to franchises out for extended periods of time because the drain and the drag is just too much on their bodies. So I think this is going to be a very, very difficult championship to win.
Yeah.
Very difficult. Cody Strickland says, will the media destroy the championship if the Jazz win by saying injuries were the reason? No. I don't think they
so.
will. No. I think people have a lot of respect for that. Mike Phillips says, Boban outscored Porzingis. Unreal.
It's embarrassing,
Yeah.
is what it is.
WTF is up with my man Jingles. He looks like he's a rookie year afraid to shoot. I think Joe Ingles understands his role, right? Why would you shoot when you have guys like Donovan Mitchell on your team that are red hot? Feed Donovan. It feeds the crowd. Like, win the crowd, win the game, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with Joe Ingles. And frankly, I think he will become much more important as the playoffs run on. I wouldn't worry about it at all. Edgar Garcia says they are not trash. You're a troll. Okay, I don't know
Who?
I'm not sure. Clippers. Edgar. Clippers are not trash. I'm telling you now, and I know Jazz fans, you're feeling good. Not to reiterate what you just said. Don't overlook teams. Don't slight the Clippers. All you need to do is survive in advance, because eventually the Clippers are either going to hit the switch or they're going to go home. And if they go home, they will have lost to a very game Dallas team that everybody said, oh, they have no chance to beat the Clippers. What are they going to say about the Mavericks and the Jazz? Oh, they have no chance to beat the Jazz. You have a chance because you're playing the game.
Right.
So I would tell you not to go looking past teams. It is.
Yeah, I just think that the Clippers are such a hot and cold team that you don't know what to expect, and that is that is why I'm not going to sit here and say that I worry about them if I'm a Jazz fan, but at the same time, you had this team that showed you they can go on the road and dominate. Like they went on the road and dominated. I mean, what was it, a 25-point win or whatever it was? I think in Game 3. They go on the road and they show out, and then they come home and what? Nothing. So it's hard to say who this team really is. At the end of the day, if you're a Jazz fan, yeah, you're probably right. You're probably in fine position either way because you're going to outgun the Mavericks.
Yes.
So you're going to be fine. And if you get the Clippers, you would think that you'd be able to handle them. So all I'm saying is don't slight other teams because you never know what could happen. Maybe what are we going to say tomorrow if Mike Conley's out the rest of the year with some torn hamstring? Who the hell knows? That's probably not going to happen. My point just is you can't tell the future. You don't know what's going to happen, and the Clippers or the Mavericks are more than capable of beating you on any given night.
Yeah, absolutely. Sakshay, good morning to you. Good to see you again. He says, I'm only scared of the Nets. Jazz can handle everyone else. Yeah, I would agree with that.
You should be scared of the Suns. You should be scared of the Suns.
Yeah, I mean, if the Suns beat the Lakers tonight, if they close that out, this is an end of an era. This would be the first time ever that LeBron has lost a first-round playoff series.
Mm-hmm.
And excuses abound. As a guy that, admittedly, I'm not a LeBron guy. I mean, you have to take injuries into account. I'm making an excuse, I guess.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
if AD doesn't play tonight, and I can't believe he will,
After the street closed Davis.
they're going to lose.
Yeah.
They're going to lose. I mean, and I don't think Charles Barkley's wrong there for calling him Street Clothes Davis.
After the street closed Davis.
He is always hurt.
Yes.
He is hurt a lot.
Yes.
Now, in the bubble last year, he stayed healthy and they won a championship. Now he hasn't stayed healthy, and he's got now this groin thing. And
They're the team that needs to be knocked out of the postseason. They need to go home. They need to rest.
They need it. I would agree with that.
I guess, and if you're a Jazz fan, it's fine. Hate on the Lakers. I get it. You're tired of hearing about the Lakers. But at the end of the day, this team needs rest. And they need to work on that roster a little bit too. I would say they need some work on that.
Trade Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, you have overvalued him. And how different would this team be if you'd have kept Lonzo and traded Kuzma?
Yeah, you'd be in a different spot.
If you'd have put Kuzma instead of BI into that New Orleans deal.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you think about that, this would be a different team. Brandon Ingram's a premier scorer. Like, that's a guy you give the ball to, and he's probably going to find a way to put it in the hole.
Yeah.
Kyle Kuzma, not that guy. And you didn't know that when you made the trade, I guess, and I understand why they hung on to him, but I think you're right. If you're a Laker fan, you almost want elimination tonight.
Well, that's why LeBron is telling Anthony Davis not to rush back. I mean, LeBron's gonna go with the narrative, hey, we were hurt, we did everything we could, but it just didn't work out. And then he's gonna go home, he's gonna get rest, he's gonna enjoy his offseason, he's gonna keep making Space Jam, and everything's gonna be fine. He's gonna come back next year, and it's gonna be all good. So that's why I say I do think that the Suns finish it out tonight. I think that they win tonight, and then I think if you're a Suns fan, you're excited because now you're in uncharted territory with Devin Booker and this group, and I think that that's a really exciting place to be.
I wonder what Chris Paul's like. I am really curious to see how bad is this injury. Is it a more significant injury than it was, or is this something where it was an aggravation of what the issue was previous?
Yeah, I think it was an aggravation of what the issue was previous, and I think it's an injury where it really, really hurts him. The pain is at a high level, when the contact happens, and then I think he's able to rehab it, lower the pain level, make it at least serviceable, and he's able to at least do something for the team. That's the kind of injury that I feel like it is, versus hey, I broke my finger, what are we going to do with this kind of thing, So it's kind of a more nagging thing to me.
Yeah, I think tonight's a big night for the Lakers and the Suns. I mean, again, I think no matter what, Devin Booker's got to be 30 plus.
Yeah.
You've got to be that alpha male. You got to be that guy that absolutely dominates the game for the Suns, because I don't think you can count on anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think Devin Booker is a consistent 3-point shot away from being just an absolute lethal weapon. Yeah, it's the only thing that separates Devin Booker that's keeping him out of elite company in this league. I mean, he is a superstar. He's just not KD. He's not Harden, Kyrie.
He's almost there.
He's not the best of the best.
Yeah.
Interesting on Reddit yesterday. I've really gotten into Reddit, by the way.
Okay.
I've been using Reddit a lot.
Yeah.
Interesting on Reddit that there was a big debate about Donovan Mitchell versus Devin Booker.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I caused that debate, but a lot of people put it even. I was really surprised by that. So I think Donovan Mitchell a year from now has potential to be just an absolute rocket ship.
MVP candidate.
Yeah, I think he absolutely, if he has the summer that he had last summer, again this summer, and both those guys, I mean, Devin Booker clearly added a mid-range arsenal to his bag.
Yeah.
And that's really become a definition for him. Yeah, absolutely. If my guy adds a consistent 3-point shot, which you would think is just repetition and mechanics, if he's able to do that, look out. Those two guys, the West only gets better.
Yes.
The West only gets better.
Yes.
Edgar Garcia says, I was responding, about the Clippers being trash, right? Driftwood says, Kuzma to the Jazz. Nah, you don't need that. You don't want that. You don't want that.
Yeah.
I think he needs to go somewhere bad. He needs to go to Orlando and be the best player on the team and see where that takes his development. You know what I mean? It just Kyle Kuzma to me is not going to develop further playing with Anthony Davis and LeBron James.
He's a 4A player.
Yeah,
that's
I would agree.
He's a 4A player.
I would agree. Vision Gaming says, hey, guys, good morning to you. Jackson A says, you didn't cause the debate. It's been going on since the beginning of time. Truth. Jeremy Bolton says, it's a fact if the Lakers lose because of injuries, but an excuse if the Jazz lose because of injuries. I think you're playing the victim. I actually don't think
why do you even care?
I don't think it's an excuse. This year in particular, if the Jazz lost because of Conley or somebody getting hurt, it's not an excuse. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
If the Lakers get eliminated tonight, it's because LeBron and AD aren't healthy.
After the street closed Davis.
It is what it is, man. It is what it is. Brandon Whitesides, of course, I don't think watches much basketball because he says Mitchell is head and shoulders better than Devin Booker.
Dude, what are you talking about?
What
are you talking about?
In what area?
You're gonna once again. This is what I always say to you, Brandon. You're gonna need to come with more than, hey, this guy sucks, or hey, this guy's head and shoulders better.
You got to come with more than sensational hot take that I can't back up.
Yeah, I need more.
If you look at their games, they're very similar players, and I think they're really close. To say one of them is head and shoulders better than the other, you either don't watch the Jazz, which I know is not the case, or you don't watch the Suns.
Which is definitely the case.
Devin Booker has every shot in his bag that you need. He needs to consistently make his 3-ball more. His mid-range, his basket finishing, his defense, the biggest shocker is his defense has gotten a lot better. Devin Booker was never a wanting defender until now, and his defense has actually gotten a lot better. Just a couple other things. Predictions tonight. I'm going to take the Suns to eliminate the Lakers tonight. I don't think that goes 7, although I do think the Lakers will get the majority of the calls because I do think that the NBA gods would like to see 7 out of that series.
Yeah, I think this is a signature game for Devin Booker. I think this is his first opportunity to put his stamp on the playoffs in his career, and I think this is on the road. It's at the Staples Center. It's all the Kobe vibes.
It's an elimination game.
It's everything that you want as a guy who is trying to climb the ranks in the public eye. And I think that Devin Booker understands that if tonight he comes out and throws up 35, 40, has a monster night, that he's going to be launched into true stardom with the general NBA fan base. So yeah, I think tonight my prediction for this game is a 15-point win for the Suns, and I think they torch the Lakers.
What do you get out of Dennis Schroeder tonight?
I mean, more than you got in the first game, which isn't saying much. So, hopefully you get 15 or 20 out of him. But I would think probably closer to 15. Yeah.
You know what? I think it's interesting to see. I think it's interesting to see how the Lakers come out. That's fascinating. Spencer Morgan says, in a system the Jazz play and a league where three-point shooting is on the rise. Well, see, actually, I don't know that three-point shooting's on the rise in the NBA.
There's a lot of conversation happening that we've so Steph comes into the league. What was it almost 10 years ago now, or however long it's been now. And three-point shooting skyrockets. Everybody's shooting threes. League has changed. The Steph Curry effect. And now we're at a point where there's a lot of conversation about the fact that the mid-range is starting to make a comeback. You notice if you watch, and I know you guys watch a lot of Jazz basketball. Yes, they shoot a lot of threes. There's no doubt about that. But what you're seeing is you're getting a lot of mid-range opportunities for guys like Bogey and Clarkson and these guys that are not, the frontline players. So I do think that the mid-range is making a comeback for sure. I think guys like Don and Devin Booker and all the premier scorers in the league are going to show you that. And I think if you can't hit the mid-range, you're not winning a championship in the league. That's age old.
Yeah, I think that now we're seeing more than ever that you have to have mid-range. I mean, if you look at the best players in the league, I mean, everybody's got mid-range. Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant.
Well, you look at the best players in the history of the game; they all had mid-range.
Yeah, you have to have it. It was one of the knocks on Trae Young, is that Trae wanted to be logo Trae. If you look at Dame in his game the other night, he had a lot of important threes, absolutely, but he also attacked the basket to create himself more space. Look at Don's work on Dylan Brooks. The only reason Dylan Brooks is knocked off center is because he's worried about Donovan getting past him. You have to have it. And the reason that I think they're even is because Devin Booker has every shot you need. His 3 percentage is not where it needs to be, period. But when you look at defense, Donovan Mitchell is a good finisher. Devin Booker's an elite finisher at the rim. Mm-hmm. I mean, he can dunk on you, finish on you, reverse on you. They both can do all of the same things. I think they're even. I think they're very, very even. Their ceilings are very close.
And that's why I want to see them in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
I truly want to see that matchup because I think that's about, if the regular season told us anything, that is about as even of a series on paper as you could get. I mean, you have matchups all over the floor. Just the Rudy Gobert, DeAndre Ayton matchup alone is highly entertaining. So, you look at that matchup. You look at obviously Book versus Don. I mean, there's matchups all over the floor. So that's what I'd like to see in the conference finals.
Yeah, and I think the long term, you're probably taking Donovan. I mean, if you're talking about who's got the most upside, well, he hasn't played nearly as long as Book has, so you would think the ceiling would be higher. I mean, if you're having to pick between these two, you're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah,
I think that to me is something that these guys both work incredibly hard, and that's why I say if you're having to pick between those two, you're in a pretty good spot. I happen to think that Devin Booker hit what he's done the last 2 summers, I think has been nothing short of sensational. I mean, his development over the last 2 summers, just his handle. Yeah. He came into last season with a much, much improved handle. Now, this offseason, this past summer, once they got eliminated, he didn't go home. He went to New York to work with Chris Brickley.
Yeah.
And immediately started working on those fadeaways, those teardrops, those mid-range close.
The difficult shots.
Yeah, the hard shots that make you an elite finisher. He's got all of those. And my guess is he knows now the upside is in that 3-ball because he is getting a lot of respect going to the basket. And now you need to be able to earn more space with that 3. So.
Yes.
A lot of people in the comments asking about Anthony Davis. They're not saying he's day-to-day game time decision.
After the street closed Davis.
Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting to see what happens.
He's not playing.
I don't think he plays tonight.
He's not playing.
I mean they were saying yesterday. I know Woj had some tweets about the fact that it's going to be up to the doctors whether or not Anthony plays, and that's usually a no.
Ask Don; he'll tell you.
Yeah, I mean that's usually a no, and probably as it should be. You know, this is the end of an era. If they lose tonight, it's the end of an era for the Lakers because you are going to have to overhaul the roster because you don't have a lot of cap space.
Yeah.
When you have LeBron and AD taking up that kind of money, obviously both those guys could restructure, extend. I don't remember what Anthony Davis's contract situation is.
But if there's any front office that can do that, it's Pelinka and those guys. I mean, they're more than capable of making it happen. And I think, LeBron would do well taking the Tom Brady approach to his contract, which is, hey, I'm going to take a bit less. I'm going to take less because I've made just so much money in my career already. So why don't I take, $5, maybe $10 million less per season and let's go sign some guys. Let's go and get whoever would be available, depending on what Boston does with their roster and that whole situation. So, by the way, to all the people who said, "Hey, you guys don't know anything about basketball," my guy over here told you that they were going to blow their roster up, and not 20 minutes later, that whole process started. So, I would
By the way, how does Brad Stevens fail upward? You got essentially pushed out as a coach. So we made you the president and CEO?
You have a deal.
What are you talking about?
This is why Boston is Boston, dude. They always do dumb things, bro.
I'm shocked by that.
Bro. Always.
I am absolutely shocked by that. And by the way, Anthony Davis has 4 years left on his deal.
Yeah, I mean, he ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be the face of the franchise for most of that contract. The thing is the question is not Anthony Davis. The question is LeBron and what LeBron's plan is. I mean, I would think that he's playing the whole, hey, I'm going to sign 2-year deals for the next 4 years, and I'm going to just kind of go that route. But he said multiple times he wants to wait and play with Bronny. So I don't know if that actually happens or not. But they need the rest and they need to get healthy. That's what needs to happen.
Boy, and by the way, at this moment in time, how lucky are the Lakers that Dennis Schroeder didn't take that extension?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to be just
Schroeder's hunting for a contract.
Thanking your basketball gods at this point.
Yeah.
But I look at him, KCP. I like the Montrezl Harrell thing is interesting. Anyway, I could talk Lakers all day. I don't understand Frank Vogel's rotations.
Nope. And it's a good conversation.
I really don't get it. Why are you Andre Drummond's not the key to your success for 48 minutes? Mm-hmm. You've got to find rotational minutes for Montrezl Harrell.
Montrezl Harrell needs to be eating Kaminsky alive. That's what needs to be happening.
Yeah.
And it's not happening right now.
Yeah. It's going to be fantastic. This game tonight is everything that you want. Denver, Portland, everything that you want. Unfortunately, I think the Lakers-Suns game tips off at 2 a.m. Mountain Time. That Denver-Portland game is actually 6.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yes.
A little early action tonight. If I had to say to you right now, who's going to win the championship? Who would you?
I would go with Brooklyn. Go Brooklyn.
Go Brooklyn right now.
I would go with Brooklyn. Yeah, because I think that James Harden. The only reason I say Brooklyn is because I think James Harden's willingness to take a step back on the scoring front and be a facilitator and be basically a playmaker, basically say, okay, hey, this is what the defense is giving me. Here's what I should do. Let me give it to Kyrie. Let me give it to KD, or let me take this one. His willingness to do that allows them to go to the next level as a team. And then you start to talk about, okay, well, hey, he gave it to Kyrie, who drove to the basket, didn't have the look, and kicked it to Joe Harris, who knocked down the three. I mean, that's why I say that's going to be tough to handle. But again, earlier you asked me, hey, who's the best team in the league right now? I still think it's the Jazz until someone can show that they can slow them down from three. So that is the one question that no one's really been able to answer.
Ace says, do you really think LeBron would take a pay cut? I do. LeBron has talked about this previously. his main income source is not basketball.
Yeah.
And when you look at the money that the Lakers are paying him, I mean, he's essentially making $40 million. I want to say he's making like 39.
He's making an insane amount of money every year.
$39.2 million.
Yeah.
And if you look at the money that he has guaranteed, he has, 2 years left on his deal, I think. I mean, he's a guy that he's absolutely talked about that he would take less money because he's going to get 41 and 44, but it's going to be a matter of why.
Dude. Yeah.
Like it is, and LeBron, by the way, is not going up; he's going down.
Yeah.
So
I just think it's the right thing to do if you're LeBron. Do you want to win or do you want to get paid? That's my question.
Jeremy Bolton says LeBron is all about LeBron walking out on his team with 5 minutes left in the game.
Oh, stop.
Did you hear the explanation for that was the game was over?
I'm so tired of hearing this, dude.
Yeah, like how are this is the LeBum conversation.
This is not difficult. This is not controversy. This is not drama. The guy's 38 years old. They're down 30 with 5 minutes left to go. He didn't walk out on anything. He went back to go and get treatment so that in an elimination game tonight, he'd actually have a chance at surviving.
It's 90 minutes of post-game treatment.
Dude, this isn't T-ball. This isn't like, soccer when you're 5 years old and you can't leave the game when you're down 15 goals. I mean, that's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
This is the NBA playoffs for a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best players to ever step foot on a floor in the NBA. And we want to sit here and say, "Oh, we walked out on his teammates. Get out of here!" Like that's not at all the truth.
Yeah, I just think that you look at LeBron, knowing that it's 90 minutes of post-game treatment. What are we even talking about?
Yeah.
And notice none of his teammates are, he's selfish. Like nobody's doing that. And I love the fact that everybody's like, "Oh, he walked out on it." Really, do you think LeBron's like, fuck it, I'm done? Like, really? You think that's where LeBron is when they're down 30 to the Phoenix Suns? That's not where he is.
This is when we talk politics, we get comments about the fake media. This is you guys making up a story. This is hey, LeBron walked out on his teammates and he's a quitter. No, my ass, dude. He went back to rehab his body after the game. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it at all. There's a lot of people, like, I'm amazed by this. I am amazed by this.
By what?
Ainge screwed up the Celtics since Cinderella season with Tatum. I think Danny Ainge did a phenomenal job in Boston. I think when you look at, Kyrie, Gordon, Tatum.
Bro, he put together the Rondo teams.
Yeah,
did people forget that?
By the way, he won an NBA championship.
Yeah.
I think Danny Ainge, anybody criticizing Danny Ainge in Boston just doesn't
By the way,
get it.
If you had a chance to put together Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving, and Jaylen Brown, I think everybody would have done that. That makes sense.
Unbelievable.
That's
why I say Brad Stevens is getting a free pass to fail upward to be president of basketball operations in Boston.
They like him that much.
And by the way, I also don't think Danny Ainge is done in the NBA. I think there's probably a high level of fatigue there.
Yeah.
Well, he's had some
health issues as well, so I think that that's being taken into consideration. But
did he have a heart thing or something?
Yeah, he had a heart thing, and so he's not a spring chicken anymore, but he is still got a lot of life left, and I think that when you get to that age and you've been in the NBA for as long as he's been, you got to remember he won a championship as a player too. He's the only Boston Celtic to ever do it. Win a championship as a player, then go and win it as an executive. And so that's why I say that. Yes, did the Kyrie thing work out? No, it didn't. Has that team been a disappointment for probably the last 8 or 9 seasons? Yes, it has. Yeah. Absolutely has been. But I don't think that we should be sitting here saying, "Oh, well, Danny Ainge is trash and he's not good." Like that's just not. I just don't think that that's fair.
Why are you guys pitying the Lakers? Who's pitying the Lakers?
Okay, once again.
Who's pitying the Lakers?
How are we pitying the Lakers? If this has anything to do with LeBron leaving the game early, I don't want to hear it.
There are no excuses when you play at this level of basketball.
And LeBron said that. He straight up said that they got their ass kicked. What do you want him to say? What do you want us to say? Hey, they were getting their ass handed to him by 30 points, right? And it was over. It was over. That game was not in question. And you want us to say we're pitting the Lakers? Anthony Davis is hurt. He's a glass box. Everyone's talked about it. How is that us pitting the Lakers?
Jeremy Bolton says Monty's all-time NBA team would have Book and Mike James.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, but what's your
I'm
point?
Shiva, the god of death.
I know everything. So
Duh.
what's your point? Casey Finlinson says it's not pitying the Lakers, it's slurping the Suns.
Well,
Yeah. Well, again, what's your point? I'm not even a Suns fan. Here's the funny thing. I'm a Booker fan. I think this is a league of players. I'm not fans of teams. I'm not a teenager or I'm not fans of teams.
Right.
In the NBA. I'm a fan of Devin Booker. I'm a fan of a number of a bunch. How are you not a fan of Donovan Mitchell's?
Mm-hmm.
If you guys I don't like Giannis. I don't happen to be a fan of Joel Embiid. I'm a.
And your fandom of Rudy has changed over the last year.
Yeah, he sucks. Anyway, the point. That was a joke. Relax. By the way, what did I tell you? Ja was going to get him.
And
Ja got him.
And
Jaren
Jackson.
Jackson got
Get some.
this. And this is it. We're going to talk about this a lot when we figure out who they're going to play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you that the best players in the NBA, if they run into Giannis and the Bucks in the finals, do you really think that Giannis is not going to attack Rudy Gobert?
Giannis will dominate Rudy Gobert.
Giannis will run right at his chest.
He's stronger than Rudy Gobert. He's more athletic than Rudy Gobert, and he has zero fear. Zero fear.
Yeah, Red Hart Norvis, that's exactly right. I'm a Lillard fan, but not a Blazers fan. I'm a Giannis fan, but not a Bucks fan. The Bucks don't have fans, do they?
I don't think so.
I don't think so at all.